All right. Hey, shalom, shalom. Hey, first and foremost, I want to say call loyim la Yahweh ba'asham Yahweh Shai ba'asham Rakakwadash. A double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to you, Akim, pushing the work in truth and in sincerity. All right. So the Lord hath raised him. All right. He shall bring him low. All right. And this is in regards to Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Okay. Who runs the world. All right. Which is a part of his inheritance to rule the world by the sword. Okay, and I wanted to read an article that basically goes into somewhat of an origin of his nefarious plans, his enterprise to take over the world and eliminate the thought of a higher power, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Eliminate that thought out of the minds of the masses of the people, and mainly your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and those of the lineage of the seed of Israel who are spread throughout the four corners of the earth, that are scattered among the four corners of the earth that are scattered among the heathen nations. All right. Esau's plight is to take God or the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai out of your conscience and pretty much substitute it with his gods, okay, or him as God. All right, you worship him, okay, and what the Lord is doing with Esau is pretty much raising him up, all right, and so that he could use him as a hireling, according to Job, the 14th chapter, the 6th verse, till he accomplish that which the Most High Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai wants him to accomplish. So it's pretty much a chess game, with Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai being the winner at the end of it all. In fact, he is controlling the whole spectrum, and so we're seeing this devil, all right, has been for some time doing evil in the earth, because that's part of his blessing. Now I want to read this just tidbit information from the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. All right, and it's under the Edomites, Edom or the Edomites. All right, I'm gonna turn the camera so you can see it really quick, Lord willing. You can see it, okay? Because Esau is going to go into it as a prominent figure in prophecy, all right, which a lot of people want to deny, okay? It says Esau figures prominently in the prophetic scriptures as the scene of great future judgments. See notably Isaiah 34 and 5. All right, that's going into the nuclear destruction. All right, Isaiah 63 and 1. It goes into the Lord pretty much, bringing havoc upon Esau. All right, and spilling his blood. It says she is the only neighbor of the Israelites who was not given any promise of mercy from God. All right. And we find that in Hebrews. Okay. Why? Because of the evil that they have done to their brother Jacob. All right. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the perpetual hatred that Esau has. All right. And you read about that in Obadiah. Okay. Another thing I want to point out, and this is from Nelson's Compact Bible Dictionary. All right. And this is under Edom. Okay. Concerning his birthright. All right. And let's see. just to establish this really quick. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying to you, Akim. You know, and so let's go ahead and deal with this. All right, so I'm gonna look up Esau. All right, let's look up Esau. All right. Okay, Esau. All right, so I'm gonna jump to this, second paragraph. I don't have it highlighted on here. All right, but it says, even though he was a twin, Esau was considered the oldest son because he was born first. By Old Testament custom, he would have inherited most of the father's property and the right to succeed him as family patriarch. But in a foolish, impulsive moment, he sold his birthright to Jacob. All right. And that's Genesis 25, 29 to 34. It says, in exchange for a meal. All right. So he impulsively sold his birthright. Okay. And that's something you don't do, because that birthright, has high spiritual value, which is going to go into. It says, all right. It says, this determined that Jacob would carry on the family name in a direct line of descent from Abraham and Isaac. Now, we know the scriptures say, the Lord, in Romans, the 9th chapter, goes into that, that the Lord has chosen us, before the world was made. It was preordained that that birthright would go to Jacob. All right. All right. It says, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good, Romans 9:11, or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that called. All right. It was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger, as it is written. All right, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. So everything that transpired in these two upbringing, all right, was the decision of the Heavenly Father. Okay, and this is all I'm bringing this out to pretty much come to a point with this article, because of their nefarious plans and their enterprise. For some time now, they have been trying to eliminate God out of the minds of people so that they can come into their new world order, so that everybody wouldn't worship the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai, especially you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But instead, he has deified himself so that you can worship him, all right? Which, he has his new world dystopia, which he has set up. And if you want to live in this world, you got to play by his rules, which he's going to set up through the image of the beast, the image, which is his society, social norms, and the social standard. All right. And ultimately, what's going to capstone that this society is the MOTB, which is his mark. All right. And this mark, Charagma, all right, is going to determine whether you can buy or sell, whether you can sustain yourself here in this world. All right. That's being ran by him. But what he doesn't understand, that the Lord has set him up to the point he's going to get to set up certain things in his enterprise. But that's when the Lord is going to bring his judgment. And that's why I brought out Edom in that the Zondervan Bible, Compact Bible Dictionary, because it says he is a prominent, all right, figure in the prophetic scriptures. Okay. And see, a lot of you Christians, all right, like to deny this or like to overlook it as if, it doesn't exist. But what did the Lord say? Okay. All right. Which pretty much kills the narrative that, prophecy doesn't matter. All right. This is Revelations 19:10. And it says, and I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, thou do not, I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahweh Shai. Worship the Most High, for the testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy. You see? All right. So his testimony is the spirit of prophecy. Okay. And what's prophetic? The downfall of Esau, Edom. All right. And it's going to go into how Esau pretty much was set up to serve his brother. Okay. All right. So, look at that. Edom became a vassal state of Assyria beginning in 736 BC. So antagonistic were relationships between Israel and Edom, that Edom is pictured as Israel's representative enemy. Isaiah 34, 5 through 17. The entire book of Obadiah is prophecy against Edom after the downfall of Judah. All right. And the Lord in Obadiah, he says that he's going to pay Edom back, and he's going to cut off Esau for cutting off the children of Israel. All right. Which Esau is the closest, nation to the nation of Israel on earth. We're supposed to be, pretty much brother nations, so to speak, but, the closest to us has turned his back on us. All right. And had that perpetual hatred. And that's what the Lord is going to judge him. Okay. Because of the heinous crimes that he's been doing and things that he's been setting up. All right. Throughout millennia, okay. Especially these last few centuries. All right. These last few 100 years, he is, pretty much sealed the deal. He is, because he vowed to kill Jacob. All right. After his father Isaac died. And if you're familiar with the story, it goes into that, he vowed to kill Jacob. And that was a perpetual vow. You see, that was an everlasting vow that lasted throughout the ages. Okay. Even up until now, to this very moment. Okay. All right. So it hasn't stopped. And that's what we see. Okay. We see that we live in a society which is controlled by Esau. All right. And you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you're at the very bottom of this society. And the enterprise is basically fueled off of your oppression and laws that he made to oppress you so that he can one, he can deprive you, and another, he can exploit you through his laws so he can make merchandise of you. Okay. And this is going on and has been going on for some time. We can point out specific things. Ronald Reagan, the Reaganomics, he's funneled drugs in the community. He set up the prison industrial complex. All right. Where he can make billions of money off of prisoners. He set up certain laws. All right. To give you strenuous, jail time where you have to serve, jail sentences. Not only that, but he's deprived you of hope in these facilities, which are, which you wouldn't even put an animal in these type of situations that he's put human beings in there. All right. Okay. So let's go into this article. All right. Okay. It says a developing evil, the malignant historical force behind the Great Reset. Okay. It says the so-called Great Reset is nothing but an extension and violent acceleration of a long-standing process. Yep, and we just briefly grazed on that long-standing process. It really goes back to the blessings that Isaac gave his sons Jacob and Esau. And Esau despised his birthright, and he sold it for a morsel of meat. All right. Okay, and not only that. Okay, he lost his inheritance. Okay, and that was an everlasting inheritance. All right, that inheritance lasted all the way to the future. Okay, and the scriptures say that he shall rule by the sword. All right, which is dealing with his Nowadays, modern day, the sword is his military industrial complex, and that's what he's been using to imperialize the world, take over the world's resources, and oppress people, and take over lands, and things that he should not do. That's against the Lord's his his laws, his covenant, his holy covenant, his divine laws. All right. So that's the long-standing process. All right, which I've just briefly touched on because I just wanted to go dig a little deep into this article and then bring out some scriptures, and really, Lord willing, this is making sense, and this is edifying. It says, over the decades, I have often despaired at the general apathy, all right, of my fellow citizens in the face of the dark forces, all right, which I could clearly see. Now, the dark forces is Esau, that and him coming in the spirit of Satan, all right. So he has all power and principalities on the left hand side, all right. That's all that means. And these people, they would like to believe the wicked to be these entities that we can't see. No, these are people. These are men who use witchcraft and magic, all right, high level witchcraft to assert themselves in the world, to dominate the world, all right, and to oppress, okay, ultimately to enslave people and have people worship him as gods, and mainly you tribes, okay, because this is a war, a spiritual war, all right, for your souls, okay, all right, but ultimately the Lord is the ultimate chess player, and he's only setting this devil up to do certain things, all right, which is the point of this lesson, to bring him down, okay. All right. It says, over the decades, I have often despaired. So Salaki, it says, which I could clearly see and feel gathering. All right. Okay. So all you see and feel gathering is Esau, coming in the power of Satan to bring forth his vain hopes. All right. It says, wondering how we could ever hope to see a mass uprising against the dominant system, which you're not. Okay, the Lord is going to use him to subdue and to try the whole world. All right. Okay, because ultimately the Lord is coming in with his way of living, his kingdom, and he's pretty much just testing the world, just mainly you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, to see who is fit to live in the future world to come. All right, which you heathen nations, starting with Esau, Edom, they have no chance of thriving and being sustained in the new world to come. Okay. Let's continue. It says, I sometimes comforted myself with the thought that one day they would become so arrogant and impatient that they would push things too far, which we hope. Okay. So the Lord can shorten the days, because if he doesn't shorten the days, all right, all flesh would be would basically perish, and he's shortening the days for the elect's sake, as the scriptures say. This is beyond the limits of what mankind is collectively prepared to tolerate. What we have been experiencing for the last 2 years could well be that moment. You see, so now we at the final stages of his capstoning his enterprise. All right. Pretty much forwarding his agenda with the New World Order, or putting it fully in place. All right. And the only thing we're really waiting on is the MOTB, all right, which is the RFID. Okay. To set that in stone, so to speak. Okay. So that the masses of the people will worship him. All right. And forget about the Most High Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. All right. It says, so that the Great Reset would prove what we have been experiencing, all right, for the last 2 years could well be that moment. So that the Great Reset would prove to be not just the extension of the existing process, but its culmination, the hubris, which announces its final demise, its nemesis. So what is this process I am talking about? There are lots of different ways of describing it. It is the increase of centralizing power, all right, the tightening of control, the growth of the economy, all right, the ever closer convergence of power and money. So he wants to pretty much centralize everything, all right. And the scripture says that he would do that, okay, Habakkuk 2. But as he's doing that, he's destroying and plunging the world into chaos, all right, while he's setting himself up on high by stealing all the resources, all right, and so that he can deprive the masses of the people, the whole world, i.e. the whole world, all right, so that he can force them into taking his, and worshiping him, and ultimately taking the MOTB, which is the RFID. Habakkuk 2 and 5, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, which is his philosophy, all right, he has a whole grand scheme of philosophical bull crap, all right, to justify the means of what he's doing right now, all right, okay. For example, global warming, all right, carbon emissions, net zero, decarbonization. When you go into those things, that's basically, in a nutshell, saying that's another way. This is another. This is eugenics, another form of eugenics. Okay. All right. By killing off the masses of people through the excuse of, people bringing harm to the world. All right. And just you wait, you're going to hear more and more inflated, corrupt, things that Esau putting out there. All right. It says he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. All right. How does he not keep at home? Because he has military bases all over the world, where he seems he seeks to occupy all the different nations of the world. All right. But the Lord is raising up a nation in opposition to him, and in nations. All right. A coalition of nations. All right. Which that the main nation is Russia, i.e. other more Edomites against Edom. If Satan's kingdom be divided against itself, how shall it stand? And so that's the scheme that's going on, or the dynamic of what's happening as well. All right, that's part of the Lord bringing the so-called white man Esau Edom down and his power structure by raising up nations against him. All right, of his own lineage. All right, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desires hell, and is as death. All right, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And that's essentially what we've been seeing through the centralization of his enterprise. All right. So centralizing power. All right. The tightening of control. Okay. The growth of the economy, and he's using it through the guise of big farm. The big medical cohorts, the big medical, like the CDC, all right, like the WHO, okay, who are implementing and setting up these different laws to whereas, at any point where they see fit, they can come in and they can eliminate the citizens' rights to just be left the hell alone. All right, he can come in and force you and poke you and do all sorts of things to you. All right, under the guise of a health emergency. All right, so let's continue. Okay, it says, today I want to focus on one concept, which I think is key to the to understanding the essence of this process, namely development. The term in English is a very broad and ambiguous one, which allows it to be seriously misused and manipulated. Sometimes it is used in the intrinsic context to refer to something that happens by itself from the inside, like the development of a child's abilities or character as it grows into an adult, the development of somebody's understanding or development of a particular culture. In this sense, it carries the implications of being natural and positive resonances, which serve and to disguise the quite different qualities of other applications of the same word. Development used in a transitive sense refers to actions taken from the outside to develop a certain thing. It could refer to what I am doing right now, the development of an idea or an argument. This kind of development is the act of organizing various elements, information, personal experiences, opinions, in order to create something which is hopefully coherent and useful. Again, this sense carries positive implications which can be used to camouflage the reality behind other processes with the same semantic label. All right, come on, man. It says, in terms of the historical process I refer to, the development could broadly be applied to the industrialization which began in the country of my birth in the 18th century, all right, and subsequently spread across what we term the West. Here we can immediately see how the other meanings of the word development obscure our understanding of the industrial variety, all right, because you did have an industrial revolution, all right, and now we're headed into that fourth, I think they call it the fourth industrial revolution, which is headed by men like Klaus Schwab. All right, I call him Klaus Schwabstica. Okay, and the World Economic Forum. Okay, it says that the first intransitive association can lead us into imagining that industry was something that developed organically, all by itself, as the unfolding of a natural socio-economic evolution, which it didn't. Okay, everything had a reason behind it. All right, okay, especially the Industrial Revolution. Okay, where pretty much, you know, you so-called Negroes and Native Americans and Latinos were pretty much ousted, all right, and deprived of, you know, certain opportunities so that Esau can build his wealth, all right, and but at the same time use your labor to build the infrastructure of this society, okay, i.e. slaves. That's what you call a slave, okay. And it says in the second transitive association could make us assume that industrial development was a positive process of using our collective intelligence to organize something useful for society, which that's the lie, that's the ploy, all right. You know, he used manual labor, he used the backs of slaves, he used the prison industrial complex to build his infrastructure. All right, only to get to the point where now we see the fourth industrial revolution with the Internet of Things. We hear talk about a digital currency, digital based currencies, central bank, CBDC, central bank digital currencies. All right, this is all culminating to this point that we're at now. This is Lord willing, it's making sense. This is conventional opinion within industrial society usually amounts to the combination of these two faulty interpretations. People tend to imagine that the natural evolution of our collective intelligence leads us to organize this inevitable and ongoing development. Continuous industrial development has been the background to all our lives, but it is not necessarily something of which we are always conscious. Right. Basically, the dude is just saying that the whole industrial revolution, all right, it had an intention. They had intentions behind it from the get-go. All right. It's not a collective thing. It's the slave masters, all right, and the slaves, okay? All right. This is my first encounter with this phenomenon, all right, was when I was about 10 years old and living in the very southern edge of the London conurbation, all right. One summer day, I discovered with some school friends what seemed to me like an amazing paradise, a meadow ring with trees, with a tiny stream running through the middle of it, or which we leapt time and time again, tumbling and laughing into the lush green grass. Basically, the world that is being developed, all right, it was developed on tyranny, okay? I'm going to jump, okay, because, you know, you should get to the point. I'm trying to get to the point. And basically, he's talking about society and it's being built, all right? All right, Salaki. All right. This is all around me. We're appearing new housing developments, new roads to serve the houses, more new houses to fill the spaces opened up by the new roads, new shopping precincts to serve the people living in the houses, and more new roads to take them there. Both in my work as a journalist on a local newspaper and in my parallel role as a campaigner trying to protect the countryside, I came to understand that mechanisms by which this development came to happen, the first thing I observed was that there was always local opposition to any proposed development on a greenfield area. The bigger the project, the greater the opposition. All right, but this opposition was very rarely successful. Several methods were used to ensure that development triumphed over the wishes of the local people. First was for local politicians and officials to denigrate opponents of the scheme in question, in which every ever way seemed most appropriate. All right. Let's see. And Salakia. All right. So this developing world, all right, he comes to, and basically a realization. All right. So I'm gonna start here. It says, I also came across a degree of corruption, of course, of very close connections between local officials and the property development. All right. Businesses whose projects they authorized. All right. That's redlining. Okay. That's what they did here in America. All right. They redlined so they could, pretty much not allow you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans to buy houses. Now, they did allow, some privileged, Negroes and Latinos to get certain houses, but that was part of the grand scheme of things. All right, bringing you into that inclusiveness, that one world order. All right, where you think you're all just a human race and y'all can live together and thrive together. All right. It says, but behind these levels of propaganda and corruption was something else, something even more important. The need for development was written into the bureaucratic planning structures devised by a central government, with which local authorities had to comply. All the local council could really decide was where this development would be accommodated. It says, so even if the people living in an area were unanimously against a certain development, even if they had somehow miraculously managed to elect representatives who were prepared to respect their opposition, all that could be achieved was for that development to be delayed. So ultimately you couldn't stop the process. Okay, just like nobody could stop the process of them building those pipelines on the west coast of America. All right, you had all type of protests and stuff like that. But ultimately, he's just going into how things are corrupt as far as on an official level. These public officials, they're with the new world plan. All right. Blase. Let's see, because this is a lot of information. And really, he goes deep into, let's see. Look at this. It says Rothschild and Company add that the foundations for their current success were laid during the Second World War when they established their business uh, presence in the USA and were thus able to vastly expand their global operations, opening offices in every major market around the world. So this is Esau slowly creeping in to every crevice around the world. All right. And again, this is all orchestrated. Why? Because the Lord is allowing these devils to pretty much take over everything. Okay. So a lot of their advances, all right, there was during the Second World War or post World War II. All right. It says a key role in pushing the idea of development has also been played by the United Nations. See the beast, okay, which is United Nations, the UN and NATO. All right, set up on the initiative of the USA at the end of the Second World War. The preamble in the preamble to its founding charter in 1945, it announced its determination to promote social progress and better standards of life, and to employ international machinery for the promotion of the economic and social advancement of all peoples. This is them advancing the world closer and closer to their ideal dystopia. All right, it says the first UN development decade between 1960 and 1970, which claimed to identify a problem with underdeveloped people, again insisted that its aim was to improve the quality of their lives. The spin was reflected in the name of the development body it spawned in 1963, the United Nations Research Institution for Social Development, all right, nothing to do with money. All right, in 1970, it launched an international development strategy and an associated UN resolution announced a unified approach to development and planning, which would fully integrate the economic and social components in the formulation of policies and programs. All right, and they've done that here in America. Okay, you got welfare, you got all sorts of development programs, especially dealing with the poor. But these programs are set up to lead us into that new world order. All right, it says this declared that its aims were to leave no sector of the population outside the scope of the change of development. See, that this is heaping unto himself all people, just another form, a small form through these development plans. All right, it says, and to give highly priority to the development of human potentials, the provision of employment opportunities and meeting the needs of children. That to say, this is to say that that is to say the needs of children as defined by those who aim to extract maximum profit from developing their human potential. All right. It says in 1986, the UN went even further when it published its Declaration on the Right to Development. Although this text clearly identified the aim of establishing what it called a new international economic order, it hid this agenda behind the absurd statement that the right to develop is an inalienable human right. You see? And this is the same ploy they've been pushing. All right, leading and carting people into this standard, this way of living. All right, everybody's part of the process. Everybody, nobody left behind. You're all part of this, this development scheme. All right, which is also ultimately leading to, all right, the finality of them capstoning their enterprise, which is the MOTB, the RFID. All right, and anybody that doesn't worship the beast, his image, all right, who don't accept these standards is going to be casted out. All right, it says states have the primary responsibility for the creation of national and international conditions favorable to the realization of the right to develop. It insisted states have the duty to cooperate with each other in ensuing development and eliminating obstacles to development. Sustained action is required to promote more rapid development of developing countries. And the final passage, Article 10, declares steps should be taken to ensure the full exercise and progressive enhancement of the right to development. including the formulation, adoption, and implementation of policy, legislative, and other measures at the national and international levels. And and that is what we have seen shaping up over the subsequent decades. In 1990, the United Nations Development Program published its first Human Development Report, defending the inalienable right of all human beings to be developed. And they use NGOs, non-government organizations, to bring this data, all right, uh, back to them, to the IMF, so that they can, start, uh, you know, their think tanks, which they already have set up, to guide society in the direction that they wanted to go. Much like what's happening now, the last few years, you had the demic, all right, which is shaping and forming us into the shortages, into these crises that they've been talking about for years now, all right, post-scarcity and all of these things. The things that's happening is just to bring us closer and closer to the finality, I say the Lord's will. All right, and which we're gonna get these scriptures, because I know this is a long read, because it goes into the history. All right, okay. It says the 10 years later, in 2000, it launched its Millennial Development Goals based on the International Development Goals drawn up at Chateau de la Muerte. Or that sounds Spanish, but that sound like it's French. It says by the OECD's Development Assistance Committee. It says private-public partnerships were very much encouraged. Goal 8 was to develop a global partnership for development. You see, this is the globalization. That's the oneness. Okay, that goes back to Nimrod. It goes back to Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, who made all people worship him and worship one religion, which is serving idols and stuff like that. So this is, which could mean cooperation, and that's the same thing they're doing now. It says, which could mean cooperation with pharmaceutical companies, or making available the benefits of new technologies by working with big tech. You see, so now we got a conglomerate of different institutions, big pharma, big tech, big medica, who are globalizing and working together, ultimately to guide society in the ideal, an ideal way of living. All right. Okay. And we already know their ideal way of living is corrupt. It's opposite of the divine nature of, the Lord's laws that he set up that actually run the society. It says collaborating closely with the United Nations on creating these global development imposing infrastructures has been the World Bank Group. You see? And then you got the IMF as well. It says, which in fact has a treaty-based relationship with the UN that dates back to its founding. All right. So everything that's happening and how the infrastructure of this society has been developed is for a reason. And basically that's what he's saying in a nutshell. Okay. And you got these culprits who have been devising these plans, these conspiracies, which actually means to breathe together, conspire. With breath, I think. So it says describing itself as the world's largest development institution. It was founded in 1944. Wow, a lot of things go back to that 1944, World War II. All right. All right. It says, and again, at that key historical moment, at the end of the Second World War, as the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and like the OECD, it was originally involved in making loans to facilitate the post-war Build Back Better, which, it's going to the clause swastika. But this was nothing more than a ploy to bring in central banks so that they can enslave people through debt. It is worth considering Klaus Schwabstica and Thierry Mallerit's comment in their 2020 book, C19, The Great Reset, that wars like pandemics. all right, have the potential to be a transformative crisis of previously unimaginable proportions. All right, now we get into the meat. Salaki, it says they wrote World War II was the quintessential transformational war, triggering not only fundamental changes to the global order and the global economy, but also entailing radical shifts in social attitudes and beliefs that eventually paved the way for radically new policies and social contract provisions. There you go. When there was no more money to be made from post-war reconstruction, the World Bank shifted its focus towards development with a heavy emphasis on infrastructure such as dams, electrical grids, irrigation systems, and roads. And they control all these things, all right? And ultimately during this demic, all right, they're going to control it to bring in their New World agenda, okay, which is scarcity, which is famine, death, destruction. All right, and I'm going to go and get those precepts. All right. So it says it has also long been interested in so-called rural development, aiming to increase production and raise productivity by means of what it calls a transition from traditional isolation. The World Bank would like to enable the transfer of people out of low productivity agriculture into more rewarding pursuits. All right. And that's, that's deceiving as well. Okay. The more rewarding pursuits in which they're talking about is, you having that chip and worshiping them in their intra, intraconnected society. All right. It says rewarding for whom exactly? Gradually, the World Bank built up a network of institutions, including the International Finance Corporation, IFC, which allowed it, in its own words, to connect global financial resources to the needs of developing countries under the feel-good catchphrase of ending extreme poverty and boosting shared prosperity. This is the lies. All right, these are the lies, man. It says what connection actually means is clear from the IFC's own reports. While boasting that since 1956, it has invested more than $321 billion in emerging markets and developing economies, it also stresses IFC operates on a commercial basis. We invest exclusively for nonprofit projects in developing countries. All right. So I got to get to the conclusion of this. All right. Here we go. Okay. So these goals are our goals, development goals, millennium development goals, i.e., the image of the beast, the mark of the beast. All right. It says I start at the top. It's like it is not for nothing that the World Bank IFC, all right, use the slogan creating markets, creating opportunities for all, the do good language. The bottom line is that investment, like development, is really about making money and accumulating power. And this, right, it ain't for taking people out of poverty, extreme poverty, as they say. It says, in this light, it is hardly surprising that the World Bank was an enthusiastic partner of the UN in pushing its millennial development goals and its partnership for greed. As it admitted, the World Bank is committed to helping achieve the MDGs, all right, the Millennial Development Goals, all right, because simply put, these goals are our goals. All right, the World Bank has been peddling the greenwashing scam of so-called sustainable development for quite a while now. As far back as 1988, its senior vice president David Hopper was announcing that it would be getting involved in formulating, implementing, and enforcing environmental policies. You see, which help change and shape the world we live in. All right. And needless to say, the World Bank is fully behind the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals adopted in 2015 and targeting to 2030. All right. And that's when they talk about scarcity around 2030. It says as their completion date, you see. So that's when they project that they're going to capstone the enterprise. It says it declares that these are an historical global achievement, boasts that they were formulated with strong participation from the World Bank Group, and are, of course, fully consistent with its own dubious goals. All right. In fact, in 2008, and these are the 5G towers right there. All right. Just so you know, let's see. Here we go. It says the process which calls itself development, in fact, equates to nothing other than destruction in every context. That's true. It says it is the destruction of nature now, right? And you have the 5G towers. They kill off the bees and stuff like that. It says now seen as a mere resource to be used for development, or as an empty, undeveloped space in which development could, should, and ultimately must take place. It says it is the destruction of natural human communities whose sufficiency gets in the way of the advance of development and of authentic human culture and traditional values, which are incompatible with the dogma and domination of the development. In the words of Ivan Illich, development can be imagined as a blast of wind that blows people off their feet, out of their familiar space, and places them on an artificial platform, a new structure of living. All right. And here we go, the image of the beast. Okay. All right. And think about Agenda 21. All right. Them buying up the land, and because they're setting it up to develop. All right, so it involves the destruction of individual autonomy. All right, since human beings are seen as nothing more than human resources, human capital to feed the unending appetite of development. All right, development is also implies the destruction of democracies. All right, which this was never a democracy. All right, it says as the goals of development are imposed on us by mechanisms hidden from general public view, all in all, development amounts to the negation of all that is organic, all that is living. It is vitaphobic, and this is this is that wine, man. They transgress it by wine. This is their elaborate, insane, sociopathic, scientific way of controlling and taking over everything. All right. It says, and why does development exist? What is the purpose behind the destruction? It is nothing more than money and power, which are the same thing in our society. What is being developed in all these various life destroying ways, in fact, the money and power of those who initiated and imposed the process. Their money develops because they extract a profit from all these destructive activities, and because they lend money at interest, the governments, in order to finance huge projects represented as being for the common or national good. So this is very elaborate what they're doing and have been doing for some time. All right, mostly post World War II. All right, but ultimately the Lord has set in their mind to do these things and forward and mobilize the way they've been mobilizing. All right, they literally destroyed nations, redeveloped them with the intention to enslave all mankind. Okay, it says where they got this money from in the first place, whether it is rightfully theirs or a creation of wealth out of thin air from dubious bookmaking practices is another matter. Well, it first was established off the backs of slaves. the Israelites. Okay, that's how they created their empire. All right. Okay. It says, but what is for sure is that debts owed to such financiers give them even more leverage over governments and the ability to insist on yet more development in order to generate the money needed to keep the repayments coming. They will, so it's catch 22. All right. So they got the world governments in control because they set up the central banks. It says they will, of course, be very happy to finance this next phase of development, which is always lurking on the horizon as a seemingly unavoidable economic necessity. That's the Great Reset. All right. This is blackmail on an unimaginably vast scale, unending spiraling blackmail, sustainable blackmail. So those behind development have been destroying everything of real value in our natural world and our human societies in the pursuit of personal wealth and power. And they have taken care to conceal this crime behind all the positive sounding rhetoric associated with development on every level. For it says, far from being something inherently good, development therefore represents something which is very close to what we might call evil. It is. All right. It says we have seen so many signs of this evil in all the development we have been collectively enduring for many centuries. That's another question to pose. If this was really development, why is the world in such decay? Okay, and it's going to go into that. It says rivers turn black and the air turned toxic by the pollution of industrial development, forest raised, all right, land desecrated, species wiped out by its endless greed. So how in the hell can you say these are developed, these things that they have been doing, all right, has been developing anything, all right? It's been wiping things out. And that's the reality behind, Esau's, his plans, his nefarious plans. It says children crushed to death by his machineries, lives ruined, cut short by decades of thankless toil in his factories, mines, and sweatshops. Communities across the world ripped from the land, ripped from each other, ripped from the happy natural lives that should have been their birthright. All meaning and value stolen from our existences, everything reduced to profit and concealed by lies. As Sachs writes, all right, Goldman Sachs, I think that's what it's talking about. Suspicion, all right, grows that development was a misconceived enterprise from the beginning. Indeed, it is not the failure of development which has to be feared, but its success. Right. All right. And that's why it says in Habakkuk, who desire is as hell. All right. Who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death and cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. We're seeing it happen through their development schemes. All right. Okay. It says, what would a completely developed world look like? It'll be completely destroyed. All right. And I always think about the Umbrella Corporation. I always think about Resident Evil. The world completely destroyed, but whoever working for the Umbrella Corporation is in a contained, sustainable environment. Safe from all the corrupt chaos that they pushed on society. It says it would simply be a dead world. Facts. All right. And this is more of the tyranny. It says since 2020, the evil inherent to this development base. I noticed a lot of reading. Hey, but if you got to fast forward it, do so, But this is actually a good article. All right. It says since 2020, it says the evil inherent to this development-based system has become much more visible to many more of us. We have seen people forbidden to gather together, and right, okay, that's part of this game as well. 6 feet apart. They even put a demonic satanic, how can I say, uh, well, they put that number on it. I could say that much, 6, all right, which is their number, all right. Okay, it says, told not to touch each other, made to cover their faces with masks, told not to touch each other. Children have been prevented from playing together. Old people left to die alone without someone to hold their hand during their final hours. Millions and millions of people reduced to a state of cowering fear by the manipulative lies of the system as it seeks to ramp up its malignant control. This expansion of power is now threatening our very bodies, which it claims as its own. You see, it says, you talk about nefarious, this is very, very, very evil, all right, what Esau is doing, okay? So, in a sense, you know, they lost their birthright, but now what are they doing? They're trying to consume everything, all right? And when you look at the full spectrum, when you look at it from you know, from a full lens, this is very, 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 very intricate. It's very, very, very nefarious, evil, wicked. All right. And it's just showing you how this devil is moving and why, you know, it says a lot. So Salak, it says it wants to infect us with its gene altering chemicals, pollute our bodies with the nanotechnology, control our fertility, and imprison us. And that's what's happening now. That's why you got the Curious George running, all right, around, and the main people are catching it of people that have the you know what, and most of them over the last few years have been the ABC, you know who I'm talking about, the alphabet communities, all right. They have bought into the you know, to the grand deception. All right. It says imprison us, center us, as the United Nations puts it, in smart cities, digital concentration camps in which our online virtual twins are used as lucrative sources of speculation and profit for impact investment vampires in their psychopathic plans for a whole new kind of human development that is indistinguishable from slavery. That's all it is, man. You know, Revelations, I think 18 goes into that, that they've taken men's souls, and that's pretty much the end game. They want to control men's souls, all right, and be gods over us, all right. It says the thing we call development is a force of darkness, and so to oppose it, we need to harness the power of light, which it said light, first of all, to illuminate the truth of the entity's activities, its destruction, blackmail, and concealment. And look, the only people that got the light is the elect, all right? The elect of Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, okay? So I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna end it here. Man, this is a damn good article to read. I read a lot of it, okay? It's blacklisted news again, developing evil, the malignant historical force behind the Great Reset. And pretty much they started in 1945, World War II. And this is when you had Project Paperclip. You had all these different, you know, operations that was going on. Esau just mobilizing, you know, destroying the world, developing the world into this new phase, this new way of living. Ultimately, to the point where we got to the point now, he's at a point where he's used these think tanks to bring about the technology to control and to bring about his plans, you know. But it's all gonna fail, all right, okay? Because what? The Lord has he's raised you up to do these things, all right? And this is in conclusion, all right? The Lord has raised you up to do these things, ultimately to bring you down, because hey, the Lord is a man of war, and guess what? He needs an arch nemesis. He needs an antagonist, you know, to bring about, you know, his finality of things. All right. So this is Ezekiel 28, And 3, behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee. All right. With thy wisdom and with thine understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures by thy great wisdom and by thy traffic. All right. And traffic represents, his monetary, basically his monetary, a hold on the world. All right. Hast thou increased thy riches. All right. And thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. All right. Therefore, thus said the Lord Yahweh power, because thou hast set thy heart as the heart of God. Behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations. All right. So he's going to raise up these nations to come against you, mainly, i.e., your own people. All right. And then the heathen nations is going to follow suit. All right. It says, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness. And they shall bring thee down to the pit, and thou shalt die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. All right. So yeah, man, the Lord is ultimately has a final destruction for Esau, man. Okay. Revelations 11 and 18, really quick, because I mentioned this earlier as I was reading. This is, and the nations were angry, and the wrath has come, and the time of the dead. All right. Those are the heathen nations. The time of the dead is the heathen nations being risen to fight against the ultimate nemesis of the Lord, the ultimate adversary of the Lord, which is Esau, Edom. It says that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints. All right. Because that's coming as well. The reward is coming in the midst of all of this. The Lord has the nations fighting against each other, and he's got them fighting for our purpose. All right. Okay. And he's ultimately going to give us a reward. Okay. All right. But that's not before the time, the hour of temptation, which is the RFID, and them capstoning the enterprise, the things I was just reading to you, them capstoning that enterprise. And ultimately the Lord is going to destroy them. All right. All right. And to the saints and them that fear that thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. All right. And they've destroyed the earth through the guise of development, which was nothing more than destroying the world so they can bring in certain development schemes, so they can create smart cities, so they can create these digital digital platforms, digital currencies to bring everybody into that new world. This is the Lord setting him up. The Lord set him up to do all of these things. All right. So, Salaki, bear with me. I know this was long, but hey, Spirit was on me to do it. So there's Romans. All right. Okay, because the Lord has risen them up to do what they're doing. Romans 9 and 17. For the scripture has said unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might shew my power in thee. So the Lord is going to show his power in these times against the beast. All right. And the horde that rideth the beast, which is America. The beast is NATO, the UN. All right. And the horde that rideth the beast is America. Okay. So the Lord is going to show his power, just like he showed his power unto Pharaoh and during the Exodus. Okay. Now this is going to be, these are greater implications behind this. The Lord showing his power this time around. All right. Because the scripture says he shall not meet thee as a man. Okay. So basically he's coming in his glory, which is an angelic, all right, extraterrestrial force. Okay. All right. With a celestial authority. Okay. So it says that I might shew my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. See? So the Lord is going to get praise and fame off of you, Esau, okay, because he's raised you up to do so. All right, so he can show his power. It says, therefore hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will have hardened, in whom he hardeneth. So the Lord is hardening these Edomites' heart so they can do what they're doing, bring about these think tanks, destroy the world through what they call development, and so on and so forth. All right. It says, thou wilt say then unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Nobody. All right. So this is the will of the Lord ultimately. Nay, but, O man, who art thou that replies against God? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? Had the potter not had the potter potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor, which is you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and another unto dishonor? What if God, willing to shew his wrath, which he is, and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? So he suffered these Edomites for long enough. All right. And he's going to make a speedy riddance of them. All right. This is Job 14:6. We get straight to the point on this one. All right. And I'm about to close out in a second. It says, turn from him that he may rest. And the scriptures talk about in 2 Thessalonians, he will not he will let until he be taken out of the way. The Lord will let. All right. So the Lord is letting his devil do all these things. But for what purpose? Until the Lord shew his wrath. All right. All right. 2 Thessalonians 2:7, it says, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. All right. And I was reading in the was it the Compact Bible Dictionary? I was reading on the Roman Empire. And basically it was saying it was going into Acts, into Paul, and how the Romans were very prevalent in his time. All right. And they ruled our whole known earth at that time. All right. You know. Okay. And so there was a lot of conflict. Okay. And basically that's what Paul was saying. Okay. The mystery of iniquity doth already work. All right. It says, for this lawlessness is already at work secretly. All right. That was the Roman Empire. All right. And what they were pushing. Now we're in the last leg of the Roman Empire. All right. Because his deadly wound was healed. All right. And you had Britain. All right. Pretty much the EEC. All right. And certain nations bring about the reviving of that Roman Empire, which is ultimately America's the last leg of that Roman Empire. Okay. Okay. Which she spawned from Great Britain. Okay. All right. So it says, only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Now let's go back to Job 14:6. Turn from him that he may rest till he accomplish. All right. As in hireling his day. All right. And a hireling is, pretty much somebody that's paid to do a work. And Esau is doing a work. All right. Okay. Revelation 6:4. All right. And that work is to what? To bring evil. All right. Because the Lord has blessed him with that sword. We can't forget that. All right. All of these things are clues to, figuring out, ultimately the grand scheme of things. All right. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon. We're going to put big emphasis on the word given, to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And that's that same sword that Esau was given from his father. All right. Isaac. All right. Okay. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard, and the point was for, okay, he was given power to take peace from the earth. All right. And that's what they've been doing through what they call development. All right. Okay. And that red horse, the red horse is Esau, Edom, because Edom goes back to Adawam, which means red. Okay. So emphasis on giving power. The Lord gave him power. All right. And he is that red horse. Psalm 17:13. they are the Lord's hand. Simply, they're the Lord's hand, man, Okay. Psalm 17, arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. Okay? So that's what's going to happen. We're in the process of the Lord casting him down, all right, through rising up the heathen nations, the dead, all right, and also, other Edomites to come against the arch nemesis, the great whore Babylon, okay, to take her and to destroy her, okay. Arise, O Lord, stand against them and bring them to their knees. Rescue me from their wicked, that's going off. It says, which is thy sword? Because I read from the NLT. It's kind of go off. It says, from men which are thy hand, O Lord. All right. His hand represents his strength, his power. O Lord Yahweh, from men of the world, which have their portion in this life. And we see, they have their portion in this life. Okay. The Rockefeller Foundation, all these different families, these different banking, cartel banking families who control the world, and central banks and all these different all these different realms to control these realms. All right, these different societies. Okay, this is from men of the world, which have their portion in this life, and whose belly thou fillest with thy hid treasure. They are full of children and leave the rest of their substance to their babes. All right. And that's the case with, the Rothschilds. Okay. All right. We went into the anointed cherub. Right. So in conclusion, all right, of this lesson, let's get Job 5 and 12. And then I'm going to close. Job 5 and 12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty. All right, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. Because ultimately their enterprise is to enslave all mankind and pretty much steal souls of men. All right, and it's ultimately the real war is against the elect of the nation of Israel. Because we're the only thing that stands in their way of, removing the Lord from people's minds, so to speak, because they can't remove the Lord, he's going to make himself very known. All right. He frustrates the plans of schemers, so the work of their hands will not succeed. All right. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, you see, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. All right. He traps the wise in their own cleverness, so their cunning schemes are thwarted. All right. Because they're going to fall on their face, especially on this one. And so the Lord is, set them up. And this is the last one, Proverbs 16:4. The Lord hath made all things for himself. All right. It says, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. The NLT says, the Lord hath made everything for his own purposes, even the wicked for a day of disaster. So he is preserving the wicked for that day of disaster, and that day of disaster is the thermonuclear destruction. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I know it was a lot of reading, but Lord willing, y'all were edified. Lord willing, this made sense to you, Akim and Aqua, that tuned in. And with that, I'm going to say shalom.